A very good evening, dear students. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. So today is 1st May 2025, and today we have some very important news articles for the discussion, and these are important for your examination. So one by one, we'll try to discuss and analyze all these topics in a much more detailed and in-depth manner. And the first important topic with which we are going to start the session is the caste census. And remember that caste census have become an all-India phenomenon because a number of political parties from different states have been demanding the caste census, and recently the Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs had taken a decision to conduct a nationwide caste census, and because of this particular reason it is in news, right? So we'll understand what exactly is a caste census and what is the importance or the need for conducting a caste census in India, why we need to conduct a caste census, and apart from that we will also understand the advantages as well as the disadvantages of the caste census as well. So thereby we would form an informed opinion, and we would also adequately equip ourselves with the information about the caste census. So the context is that recently the Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs, and this particular committee is headed by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So this particular Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs had approved the enumeration of caste census in India. Right, so enumeration of caste in the upcoming census. Remember that 2021 caste census have not been released or not been conducted because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So however, center particularly Ministry of Home Affairs, every 10 years it actually conducts a detailed population census, but due to COVID-19 pandemic the census has not been conducted. But the Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs had taken a decision that there will be an enumeration of all the castes across India in the upcoming census. And in fact it is also being said that this decision has been taken by the central government owing to the demands that are coming from the different states. And in fact Bihar already conducted a caste census, Karnataka and even Telangana also, and there are a number of states which have been demanding conducting a nationwide caste census. So earlier the government stance was that it was not interested to conduct the caste census, but the government appeared to reverse its position by taking a decision on the caste census. And in fact previously the very same government was not interested to conduct a caste census despite demands from number of states. However, so it is expected that once the center conducts the caste census across India, so it will strengthen the social and economic structure of our country and our society as well, because we get to know about the total number of populations who are living in different castes as well, and we also get the opportunity to analyze and understand the socio-economic background or progress that has been made by these different castes, and appropriate policies can be framed as well. Now, why states have been demanding the caste census? So states have been demanding a comprehensive caste census to understand the reservation benefits are actually benefited the desirable sections of the society, and in fact we would also know the composition of different castes in a particular society, and accordingly the reservation or other affirmative action benefits can be provided to the backward sections of the society, and it will also certainly help in the other important areas, right? So other important areas in the sense that recently governments like Telangana, so what they have done, they have subcategorized the existing SC populations, and subcategorization of SC population and subcategorization of different castes is very important, so that to ensure the affirmative action benefits are actually taken to the most deserved categories, and that's why number of states have been demanding the caste census. However, it is also expected that when we get to know about the different castes, it will start appeasement politics. The political parties starts appeasing that particular community which is in majority by giving them more number of seats, by giving them more number of benefits. So there are number of fears and the advantages also, and in fact as we have already understood that number of states have been demanding conducting an all India caste census as well. And in fact So census 1951, whatever data has been collected, and that particular data in census 1951 actually include the number of individuals who belong to scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and various other religious denominations, right? So therefore census 1951 is actually having some information about the individuals who are belong to the different communities, different categories. However, the members of caste groups other than SCs and STs have not been counted as part of the census 1951, right? So 1951 scheduled castes and scheduled tribes population, so we have some data about them, but other categories such as other backward classes or even general categories, so we don't have adequate information, because general category also consists of other number of different castes, and OBCs also consists of different castes. So OBCs are not homogeneous and general category is also not homogeneous, and it is very important to understand the social, economic and educational background of those different castes, so that the adequate and appropriate affirmative action policies can be framed. So that is the objective of conducting a caste census. However, the most recent caste data available is from the census 1931, right? So this is the census which has a detailed information about caste in India. However, we all knew that 1939 Second World War has got started, and 1941 was also a war year. So therefore 1941 census was carried out during the Second World War. So Second World War, so this 1941 census has been collected, but the census that has been collected during 1941, this census data has never been released. So however, as of now, we don't have adequate information about the OBCs and different castes which are part of the OBCs, and general category castes which are part of this particular general category, and from SCs also, SCs and STs also, right? So within SCs and STs also we don't have adequate information about the caste, but as of now India has been relying on a number of other factors, such as the Mandal Commission report on other backward classes, the socially and educationally backward classes, because Mandal Commission has recommended that other backward classes should be given 27% reservation in education and employment. So we still relying on the Mandal Commission recommendations, and we also relying on the National Sample Survey to understand the progress of different castes that have been made so far, so assessing the populations of other backward classes. And when we rely on the outdated data, so it will lead to uncertainty in the policy formulation and also resource distribution as well. Because understand one thing, that if we have adequate data about different castes within the OBCs, so there are particular castes which are considered as the most backward classes, and there are some particular class which are considered as most progressive castes as well, right? So most progressive and most backward classes. Now here the most backward classes, it is very important to allocate higher amount of resources for those most backward classes. So therefore it will result in the affirmative action of the backward classes, instead of spending money on the most progressive caste and least progressive caste equally, right? So the affirmative action will not be justified if we are spending the same amount of resources on least benefited class or least progressive caste and most progressive caste. So therefore it is very, very important for us to understand and identify those least progressive as well as the most progressive caste, and thereby it will result in adequate and effective policy formulation and also the resource distribution as well, right? So now, why there is a demand for conducting such a caste census all across India? So why we need to conduct a caste census? So it is also very, very important to understand the need for conducting such a national level caste census as well, because accurate caste data is crucial, and it is also very important for implementing and even monitoring the reservation policies. So we all knew that a 27% of reservation has been provided for the other backward classes, and this 27% reservation has been provided through the recommendations of the Mandal Commission. So apart from 27% of the reservation, so 15% reservation has been given for the scheduled castes and 7.5% reservation has been given for the scheduled tribes, and around 4% reservation has been given for the persons with the benchmark disabilities, right? So now when we conduct a detailed caste census, we'll understand and we'll also monitor how these reservation benefits, reservation policies have been benefiting different castes within one homogeneous caste group. For example, SCs is considered as a homogeneous, is not a homogeneous caste group because there are number of castes which are part of the scheduled caste, and scheduled tribes also there are number of castes which are part of the scheduled tribes, and the same this is the same case for the OBCs as well. So therefore, when we have a detailed caste census, it will help us in implementing and also monitoring the existing reservation policies in education, employment, and also political representation as well. Political representation in the sense that still we are giving reservations for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the state legislative assembly as well as Lok Sabha, respectively. So therefore, it will help us monitor and frame better policies for the affirmative action of these backward sections. And in fact, Supreme Court in the past also through several rulings such as Indira Sana versus Union of India case 1992 and Yam Nagaraj versus Union of India case 2006 and JK Industries Limited versus Union of India 2007. So in all these cases, the Supreme Court has been emphasizing on the need for a detailed caste data, right? So we can also take the precedence from the judgments of the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court time and again has been emphasizing on a detailed caste data to uphold and also define the backward class reservations, right? So it is not adequate if you frame policies for the reservation of backward classes and you're not at all evaluating and monitoring how the reservation benefits are actually benefiting the least backward classes. So that is also very important, and that is also another area that we need to look into. And even there should be a data for a targeted welfare representation, right? So data for targeted welfare representation essentially means that when you have adequate data, it will result in data-driven and evidence-based policy making. For example, imagine take the case of OBCs, and OBCs, Yadavs are considered as the most progressive caste group, and within OBCs there are also other different castes as well. So those different castes which are least backward, and we would allocate more and more funds for the benefit of these least backward classes within the OBCs. So therefore, it will give us a certain amount of data, and based on that data we could actually make changes in our existing policy, right? So without updated caste data, it's very, very difficult to assess whether the reservation policies, welfare schemes, and even economic development programs are actually reaching the right communities. So that is the area that actually requires adequate data as well. And in fact, so as I have already told you that Mandal Commission has recommended 27% of the reservation for the other backward classes, and accordingly Parliament has provided 27% of the reservation for the other backward classes. So however, OBCs are estimated to be around 50 to 52% of the total India's population, but there is no official data, no official figures available about the total number of OBCs in India, because this number is only from the Mandal Commission, right? So this is outdated and we don't know how many number of OBCs are existing. So this is also a very important area that has been demanding that there should be a national level caste census that has to be conducted. And even so, as I have already talked about the evidence-based policy making and data-driven policy making, so in evidence-based and data-driven policy making, it will result in evidence-based social justice as well. So what do you mean by the social justice? So when you have adequate data about a particular community, and you could understand whether that particular community is a backward or it is a progressive community, and accordingly what would you do? You would distribute or you would allocate more number of financial resources for the benefit of those sections, and you would give a greater amount of reservation for the employment and education of people from those particular communities. So therefore, ultimately it will result in what? It will also result in the social justice of the communities as well. And in fact, there are many backward caste groups within the SCs and even the other backward classes also. So these many backward class groups have been arguing that, so if they have if the government have the caste data, so this caste data is very important, and it is also very essential to ensure fair representation from those those caste groups in education, employment, and even the politics as well. Remember, as I've already told you, that Indian Parliament has provided certain reservation for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, right? So in fact, this is not the first time that the center has taken this initiative, but already in different states initiated this caste census. For example, Telangana, Karnataka, and Bihar. So all these states have actually taken the lead conducting the caste census to understand the realities at the state level, right? So, and in fact, there are different regional political parties which are also demanding the center to conduct the detailed caste census, and even the main opposition political party in India also asking the government to conduct a detailed caste census. Now in this context, we'll understand the arguments against the caste census. So we have understood why there is a need to conduct the caste census, but we'll also try to understand the arguments against the caste census as well. So the first argument is that, so when you get to know about the caste system, there is a probability that it would again reinforce the caste identities in India. So reinforcing caste identities is going backward, right? So it is going backward. So therefore, conducting a caste census is not a good idea. So one thing what happens is that, so when you identify the caste census, the political parties started appeasing the majority caste through the vote bank politics and allocating more number of seats to the majority political party, or even giving more and more financial benefits to the majority political party. So therefore, it is being believed that India is a country which has been trying to emerge itself out of the caste hierarchies. So but the caste census would again reinforce the caste identities, because it actually believed that it could entrench the caste divisions, which the constitution aims to eliminate over a period of time, right? So in fact, annihilation of the caste system is the major aim and objective of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He very often fight for the annihilation of the caste system, but conducting a detailed caste census would again brought in the caste system into Indian society, Indian politics, and it would entrench the caste divisions within the society as well, right? And apart from that, the complexities that are existing and even the classification challenges as well. So there are a lot of classification challenges and complexities when it comes to conducting such a detailed caste census, because there are issues of overlapping the caste names of people or population groups, and state specific variations among different castes and their relative social and economic progress, and even the presence of an open-ended and ambiguous caste categories such as orphans and converts. So all these different caste groups and different caste related aspects or components make the caste data, compilation of the caste data, a very difficult and a complex task as well. And apart from that, there are also migrants and people belong to the people who have done the intercaste marriages and even regional inconsistencies. So all these things are expected to further complicate the classification process in India. So ultimately, when we talk about the politicization of identity, now, so when we look into the politicization of the identity, so it is also being believed that when we conduct the caste census, there is a probability that it could politicize the identity as well. So, right, the caste census data could be misused for the vote bank politics, as I have already mentioned. Imagine that there is a political party at the level of state, and the political party get to know that a particular community is in majority, and in fact, if the majority community supports this particular political party, it will come to power. Now what this political party will do, so the political party will target the majority community, right? So a number of ways. So it will try to appease the majority community by neglecting, and it will also consequently lead to the neglect of the minority groups as well. So therefore it will result in the vote bank politics, and it will also result in the electoral segmentation and identity based polarization rather than the genuine welfare planning of the populations, right? So these are the major arguments against the caste census, and there might be a question on this caste census. So therefore this is also very, very important topic. So the next important topic is the natural hydrogen and its potential as a future fuel. And in the previous classes also we have several times discussed about the hydrogen as a fuel, and in fact hydrogen is itself different types based on the process of production of hydrogen. For example, it could be blue hydrogen, it could be green hydrogen, gray hydrogen, brown hydrogen. But the way hydrogen is being produced, hydrogen is itself a green fuel, but the way hydrogen is being produced actually determines the what sort of a hydrogen it is, right? So this is a very very detailed article which has been given in the Hindu newspaper, and this is very important for your general studies paper 3. For your general studies paper 3, hydrogen is very important, right? So when we talk about the hydrogen, so hydrogen is considered as a sustainable fuel, and in India we also have a national green hydrogen mission. So we already have the national green hydrogen mission because we have understood the potential of green hydrogen to fuel our economy in the future, and we also have understood the potential of green hydrogen to decarbonize our economy in the future. Now in this context, hydrogen is seen as the fuel of the future, right? So it is considered as the fuel of the future, so one that would decarbonize the world economy and also stop the global warming, right? Because we have excessively dependent on fossil fuels for the production of the energy. For example, in India itself 57% of the electricity is produced from the thermal power plants. Now in fact these thermal power plants which mainly dependent on fossil fuels such as coal, right? So it mainly dependent on fossil fuels such as coal. So when we burn the coal actually releases the greenhouse gases into the environment, and these greenhouse gases would cause the global warming, and this global warming will ultimately result in the climate change as well. So because of that particular reason, there are number of global agreements such as Paris Agreement, and before Paris Agreement, so there is also Kyoto Protocol as well, and these Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement, they aimed to cut down the emissions so that planet Earth could be protected from the harmful effects of the global warming and climate change. Now in this context, fossil fuels are one of the major contributor of the greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere. So we should substantially reduce our dependence on fossil fuel, and for that hydrogen is considered as the most promising and most potent alternative for these fossil fuels. And hydrogen would also help us in decarbonizing the world economy and Indian economy, and it would also stop the global warming as well, because remember that hydrogen fuel is considered as a green and sustainable fuel. And in fact, if we have harvested hydrogen in a sustainable manner, that means the green hydrogen, right? So green hydrogen can be harvested in a sustainable manner. So how it can be harvested in a sustainable manner? So we actually use the renewable energy for the production of the hydrogen, and this hydrogen is called as green hydrogen. So renewable energy in the sense that, so through wind, through solar projects, so whatever energy that we have generated, and this energy could be used for the production of the hydrogen, and this is considered as the green hydrogen, because in this process of production of hydrogen there will be no greenhouse gas emissions, and this is why it is being called as the green hydrogen. So there are different modes of hydrogen production, so green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, and turquoise hydrogen, gray hydrogen, and brown hydrogen. So we'll try to understand about this as well, right? So in fact, if we have harvested the hydrogen in a sustainable manner such as green hydrogen, so this natural hydrogen may provide a clean and potentially low cost fuel to satisfy the world's increasing energy demands, right? So in fact, the energy demand of the world has been increasing, and in fact India's energy demand will also substantially increase in the coming future, and it is also very very important to satisfy the world's increasing energy needs with a considerable reduction in the carbon emissions as well. Now when we talk about the hydrogen, particularly natural hydrogen, right? So natural hydrogen is a hydrogen which is different from the existing hydrogen categories, such as it is different from green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, turquoise hydrogen. So it is actually different because like how coal is extracted, how the fossil fuels are extracted, so natural hydrogen is also extracted from the underground, right? So if we are able to extract the natural hydrogen from the underground in a sustainable manner, it will be considered as a green fuel and it will benefit the economies of scale across the different countries across the world, right? Now in this context, let's try to understand very briefly what is a green hydrogen. So as I have already told you that, when we are producing hydrogen, right? So when we when we are making hydrogen, so hydrogen actually required separation of hydrogen from oxygen. So water, from within the water you need to separate the hydrogen and oxygen. So in green hydrogen, so electricity from the renewable sources will be used to electrolyze the water, and electrolyzing water will help separate the hydrogen and oxygen molecules, and ultimately this hydrogen, whatever hydrogen is generated, it will be stored. However, what does blue hydrogen actually means? So in blue hydrogen, what we do, it actually produced through natural gas. So natural gas as an energy source is being used for the electrolysis of water for the separation of hydrogen and the oxygen, right? So however, in this process greenhouse gases are released, but these greenhouse gases are captured and stored, and that's why it is being called as the blue hydrogen, right? So what is a turquoise hydrogen, right? So this turquoise hydrogen is produced using natural gas or a pyrolysis, right? So pyrolysis is also a process that has been used for the generation of energy, and in this process, so we would actually separate methane into hydrogen and solid carbon dioxide as well. So this is not considered as a green because it also concerned with the emission of the greenhouse gases as well, right? So there are two other different forms of hydrogen. So this is very interesting here. So gray hydrogen. So gray hydrogen means it is actually produced using the natural gas via steam and reformation, but with no carbon capture and storage, right? So carbon will not be captured and it will not be stored as well. When we talk about the gray hydrogen, so gray hydrogen also natural gas is being used, right? So natural gas is being used. So brown hydrogen, so instead of natural gas, so coal is being used for the separation, for the electrolysis of water into the hydrogen and the oxygen, and in this process also a large amount of greenhouse gases are being generated, but these greenhouse gases are not captured or stored as well, right? So these are different forms of hydrogen. Now we'll understand how natural hydrogen is extracted, right? So what are the ways through which the natural hydrogen is extracted? So as of now, hydrogen is manufactured mostly from the natural gas, right? So we are not even producing the large amounts of the green hydrogen as well, because green hydrogen actually requires a substantial amount of the substantial amount of the renewable fuels, because we need to use the renewable fuel such as solar energy, wind energy, and this renewable fuel will be used for the purpose of electrolysis, and electrolysis actually involves separation of water into hydrogen and oxygen. But as of now, the majority of the hydrogen that we have been producing through the natural gas. So natural gas is being used for the production of the hydrogen, right? However, when we use natural gas for the production of hydrogen, so it is considered as the energy intensive and even polluting process as well, because blue hydrogen, we use natural gas, but with respect to blue hydrogen, what we do, the greenhouse gases which are emitted in the process of electrolysis, so those greenhouse gases would be captured and stored. But with respect to the other cases such as gray hydrogen, so in the case of gray hydrogen, the greenhouse gases would be emitted but they are not captured, so therefore it is an energy intensive process and polluting process as well. However, green hydrogen made with the renewable electricity, on the other hand, is still prohibitively expensive, right? So as we already talked about this, so green hydrogen. So when we talk about the green hydrogen, so within the green hydrogen we use the renewable form of energy for the separation of water into hydrogen and oxygen. But the problem with the generation of green hydrogen is that it is more and more expensive, right? So since it is expensive, so we cannot substantially rely on green hydrogen unless we reduce the cost. So therefore it would require a vast amount of wind and solar power to work out at a scale. However, the natural hydrogen occurs as a free gas in geology, right? So within the layers of the planet Earth, so natural gas is actually occurs as a free gas, right? So natural hydrogen occurs as a free gas. So therefore it will be produced by processes that involves serpentinization. So serpentinization, this is very important term, so you should remember this term. There is also a possibility of this particular term is being asked in your examination. So what does serpentinization process actually involves? So this is an interaction of water and iron containing rocks, and that is what is called as serpentinization. And in fact the serpentinization is the process of producing the natural hydrogen, which is found in the geology as a free gas. And apart from that, there is also another process called radiolysis of water by radioactive rocks and from organic matter at a different depths. So you could see here so how green hydrogen is being produced. So as I have already told you that the green hydrogen is produced from energy that has been generated from the renewable fuels, right? So this is how green hydrogen is being produced, right? So when we talk about the current reserves of green hydrogen in India, so it is very important that we need to identify the reserves of green hydrogen in India and the world as well, right? So the total size of worldwide natural hydrogen is still poorly known, because we don't have the data, we don't have the exact information where we could actually found this natural hydrogen in the geology, right? So we don't have a concentrated exploration policies and comprehensive exploration frameworks for the exploration of the green hydrogen, exploration of natural hydrogen, sorry. So therefore the recent discoveries and current research have been indicating that there is a considerable potential to extract the natural hydrogen from the geology of planet Earth. However, in contrast to the conventional hydrocarbon exploration, so hydrocarbon exploration essentially it means the fossil fuels, right? So conventional hydrocarbon exploration is exploration of fossil fuels such as crude oil, natural gas. So that is the conventional hydrocarbon exploration. So in contrast to this hydrocarbon exploration, a dedicated frameworks for the natural hydrogen exploration are still evolving, or still they are absent. So therefore it is the high time that the country should come forward, and they need to share their technology, they need to share their expertise to identify, to found out the natural gas reserves all across the world, because natural gas will help in decarbonizing the economies and also help in ensuring the energy security of number of countries as well. And the world could also be able to meet the targets that they have already set in for the Paris climate deal, that we would like to reduce the global temperatures rise to below 2 degrees Celsius, but if possible we could be able to reduce the global temperature rise by 1.5 degrees Celsius by the year 2100, right? So however, when we specifically talk about the Indian context with respect to the extraction of the natural hydrogen, so natural hydrogen potential is mostly untapped in India, but it is found to be promising because the existence of the favorable geological structures that could actually house the natural hydrogen, right? So what are these favorable geological structures where we could actually found the hydrogen, such as basaltic assemblages, Andaman and Himalayan or ophiolite complexes, and greenstone volcanic sedimentary sequences in Dadwar and Singhbum. So Dadwar is in Karnataka and Singhbum is in Jharkhand. So in all these different places we could actually found the natural hydrogen gas, right? So once we found the natural hydrogen gas, so we should focus on the extraction of the natural hydrogen gas in a much more sustainable scale. So you could also see here why for a country like India it is very very important to focus on hydrogen, right? So as of now India's electricity generation is heavily dependent on the coal, right? So coal is a fossil fuel, and when we burn coal it will release greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. However, hydrogen will replace the fossil fuels and it will also address pollution and the oil price rise as well. And in fact hydrogen is considered as the most abundant element on the universe, and it is also lighter, and in fact it is also considered as the energy dense and 2-3 times more efficient than burning fuel. This is the another advantage of the hydrogen, and in fact hydrogen fuel will also benefit the transportation sector in India, and it contributes 1/3 of India's greenhouse gas emissions, right? So the transportation sector itself has been contributing to the around one third of the India's greenhouse gas emissions. So if we make the hydrogen main a fuel for the transportation, we could substantially cut down the emission of greenhouse gases from the transportation sector as well, right? So that's why hydrogen is very very important, particularly the natural hydrogen which is found in the geological formations of the planet Earth. And another important article is that recently the Supreme Court has said that digital access is part of the fundamental right under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So one thing that we should understand here is Article 21 of the Indian Constitution is very exhaustive, and it is also very wide, because time and again Supreme Court has been including a number of different rights as part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. For that matter, right to clean pollution free environment, right to health, right to education, right to be silent, right to internet, right to information. So all these different rights are included in the Article 21 of the Indian Constitution by the Supreme Court over a period of time through its progressive judgments. So in this context, recently the Supreme Court has held that digital access could be part of the fundamental rights. The Supreme Court of India made a landmark declaration that the right to digital access is an intrinsic part of right to life under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So we all knew that Article 21 of the Indian Constitution talks about right to life and personal liberty, and one thing that we should understand is Article 21 is evolving in nature, right? So it is evolving in nature because through the progressive judgment the Supreme Court has been widening the scope of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, and yet another measure the Supreme Court has brought in the right to digital access as part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And this judgment came in response to a set of petitions, and these petitions have been demanding easier digital access for the acid attack survivors, right? And petitions have been filed by the acid attack survivors, and they are demanding essential services like banking and e-governance, right? So they should actually have access to the essential services, because in recent times, as a digitization push by the government of India, so most of the services are being provided through the digital means, and there are persons with benchmark disabilities, and we should also understand the special needs of the persons with benchmark disabilities, and we should also make appropriate policies for ensuring that the persons with benchmark disabilities accessing all these digital services. And that's why the Supreme Court, in order to protect the rights of the people, made the digital access as a part of the fundamental right under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, right? So if center has not made, if the government or the state has not made appropriate policies, appropriate frameworks to ensure access to the digital services by the persons with benchmark disabilities, it could amounts to violation of the fundamental right by the state as well. So therefore they could approach either the Supreme Court or High Court as well. So this is a two-judge bench. Recently the Supreme Court's two-judge bench has said that today's world in today's world, access to services and entitlements happens primarily through the digital means, right? So digital means are the primary means through which the services are extensively provided to the different categories and different population groups, and that has been accepted by the two-judge bench of the Supreme Court. And in fact, the Supreme Court has also identified and understood that digital access is no longer a privilege, right? So it is no longer a privilege. It is very essential and very important, and it should be extended to every population group and every individual as well. And in fact, it is no longer a privilege, and digital access is also very, very important and a cornerstone of living a life of dignity, which is part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So therefore, the Supreme Court has rightly said that bridging digital divide is very, very important. So what does it mean, digital divide? So digital divide in the sense that there is a lack of equitable access to the digital access, right? For example, the digital device, the internet, the mobile phones, so there is a lack of equitable access among the different population groups, right? So therefore, the Supreme Court has clearly said that bridging digital divide has become a constitutional imperative, and that will be directly linked to right to life and personal liberty and dignity under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, right? So in fact, the Supreme Court has stated that it is the obligation of the state under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution to ensure access to the digital services to the persons of benchmark disabilities, and the Supreme Court has made this in conjunction with Article 14, 15 and 38 of the Constitution, right? So in fact, the Supreme Court has clearly held that this must encompass the responsibility to ensure access to digital infrastructure, to ensure access to government portals and even the online learning platforms, along with the financial technologies which are universally accessible. But there are population groups which could easily access all the digital services that the government has been providing, but persons with benchmark disabilities are not able to access the government digital services that are being provided, and that's why the Supreme Court has brought this under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And in fact, the court has also noted that exclusion from the digital services undermines the basic rights like access to welfare schemes, financial inclusion, legal identity, public services. So all these different services should be part of welfare schemes, and they should be brought under the digital services, and these digital services should also be readily accessible by the people as well. And in fact, the judgment rightly recognizes the artificial intelligence driven assistance technologies like screen readers, voice commands, gesture recognition, and even alternative biometric authentication, iris and OTPs. So all these things should be part of the digital services, and they must be extended to the persons with the benchmark disabilities, right? So here we'll understand the digital divide, which has been existing in India. Right. So in fact, we already knew that the Digital India program that the government has launched, which has been brought in the year 2015, aimed at rapid digitization, and it has even resulted in rapid digitization across the country, right? So in this context, the Aadhaar and unified payment interface, the government portals such as DigiLocker, Jandan accounts, so all these things have enabled the vast improvement in transparency and also the service delivery. However, the digital readiness and access are not equal, right? So not equal in the sense that there is a digital divide which has been existing between urban and rural areas, and digital divide that has been existing between male and female population, right? So digital divide is a very, very common phenomenon in India. So therefore, it is very important that we must bridge the existing digital divide, because as per the National Family Health Survey 5 data, only 33% of the women in rural areas have access to internet compared to women in the urban areas. So therefore, this is what is called as digital divide, and it is very important to build the bridge the digital divide, because now most of the services are provided through the digital means, and in this context it is very important that the women or other disadvantaged groups should have access to these digital services. And in fact, especially persons with benchmark disabilities, so they actually have special needs, and they face a severe barriers due to the non-compatible websites, lack of assistive technology, and even the inadequate training as well. And apart from that, mandatory Aadhaar based authentication has been made for number of welfare programs, and eKYC biometric requirements are actually excluding the people with the disabilities, people with benchmark disabilities, old age people, people who have been fighting with illness, a chronic illness, right, and disfigurement from accessing banking. So all these different problems that the persons with benchmark disabilities have been facing. Now in this backdrop, making a digital access to services is a fundamental right, is a progressive step on the part of the Supreme Court, right, because it ensures that state would take appropriate measures to ensure digital access to services for all the vulnerable sections in the society, right? So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. And if you like our class, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.